Alright guys, we've already talked a lot about the history of Nike Air. In particular, we've broken down the history of Air pack that was released in 2006, and that pack featured 8 amazing runners. The Air Max 1, 90, 180, 93, 95, 97, 2003, and 360 models. So we had 8 amazing runners. But tucked away in between some of those awesome years were some really cool Nikes that have never been retroed. In particular, I'm talking about the Air Max 96 today. And I'm going to break down the Air Max 96 in this video and show you a few different versions of that amazing shoe. We're all familiar with the Air Max 95. Remember that it was the first Air Max to feature visible air right up here at the front of the shoe. And of course, we're also very familiar with the Air Max 97, my all-time favorite pair of sneakers. And it was the first pair of Nikes to feature visible air from the heel all the way to the toe, and that was a huge innovation. But in between the full air and the air up in the front was another real amazing shoe, the Air Max 96. I'm going to move these 95s and 97s out of the way so we have a little bit of room, and I want to talk about the Air Max 96. I remember when the shoe first came out in 1996. I had just graduated high school in 95. I was broke as a joke, and I really wanted this pair of dark Concord 96s. Of course, I couldn't afford them. My best friend at the time had a pair, and he used to loan them to me from time to time, and I remember rocking them and looking down at my feet and just wishing they were mine. Come on over here and let's have a look at this pair of dark Concord Air Max 96s. Back in 1996, Air Maxes were just called Air Maxes, not the Air Max 96. So have a look down here at the box, and you're going to see that it just says Air Max. It really wasn't until the retro era that Nike started being called Air Max, and then the year that they came out. You'll notice that this pair of 96s has visible air right down here up at the front, just like the Air Max 95. But the innovation on the 96 has to do with the rear air bubble, and let's have a look at it. So you're going to see that it sort of wraps around the back of the shoe. See that right there? With just this little indentation of rubber. Now that's going to be very similar to the Air Max 97. When you look right here at the back of the shoe, it's going to have that same similar little rivet right there, but you can see that the air bubbles are very similar from the 96 to the 97. And really the Air Max 96 was the transition between the 95 with air up in the front to the 97 with air going all the way along the shoe. One thing that's really strange about these 96s is the way that they tend to deteriorate. Have a look here at the mesh. It almost looks like it's rusty. I don't know of too many Air Maxes that deteriorate that way. So I want to tell you a little story about how I got this pair of Concord 96s. I was in San Diego in 2001 in law school, and I went to a little sneaker shop known as Chinaman. That wasn't actually the name of the store, but there was a Chinese man that sold a lot of really cool Nikes. He pulled these out of the back, out of his vault, and sold them to me, and I remember thinking, man, this shoe hasn't come out for 5 years. I can't believe this guy still has them. And this is the pair. I've never worn them. Let's go up top over here and look at a second edition of Air Max 96s. In 1996, Nike actually released 2 different Air Maxes. This was the second edition. The colorway on this is Goldenrod. You may be familiar with Goldenrod from the Wu-Tang Dunks from 1999. Only 36 pairs of those representing the 36 chambers of the Wu. Goldenrod was the color of that shoe. Goldenrod is going to be the shade of yellow on this shoe. The shoe, the Air Max 2, has the same air bubbles as the Air Max 1 from 1996. The main difference is really the upper. You'll see on the second edition there's this big swoosh, big giant branding on there, compared to the first edition where there's just a little swoosh on the back of the heel. Remember that in 1995, the Air Max 95 didn't really have a big swoosh on it, and neither did the 97. So the first 96 doesn't, but the second 96 does. Let's come on down here and have a look at another first edition of the Air Max 96s. The colorway on this one is Scream Green, which you may be familiar with from the first ever Air Huarache LE, the running shoe. Of course, this one has a different shade of blue on here. It's another very rare example of an early Air Max 96 that has never been retroed. When the Nike executives were visiting the ShoeZeum, I told them you gotta retro the 96 and the 98, and they laughed and said that the 98 was such a dog. In fact, they called over the designer, his name was Slinger, and they said, hey man, this guy thinks we should retro the 98s. Those things will hit the outlets for sure. Guess what? 2014 Air Max 98s are being retroed in at least 5 colors. I hope they do the same thing with these Air Max 96s. Over the years, they've retroed the 96, but they've made it into a hybrid. Let's work our way over and look at these two pairs over here. They're Air Max 96 180s. The Air 180 originally came out by Nike in the early 90s, but there was a second generation of Air 180s that came out in 2006, and it featured this air bubble on it. So these pairs of shoes here are going to be Air Max 96s with a 180 hybrid. It's got the 180 midsole and outsole. Now, the big innovation about the original Air 180 in 2006 is that it was compatible with your iPod. Unfortunately, this pair of Air Max 96 180s is not compatible with your iPod or Apple accessories, so they sort of missed it with that right there. But come on up and have a look at this pair of Air Max 96 Evolves. These just came out about a year or so ago. It's going to have the upper of the Air Max 96, and then it's going to have this crazy air bubble going all the way around the back, the evolution, if you will, of the Air Max 96. That's why it's called the Evolve Edition. And this pair of shoes actually is compatible with your Apple iPod and other Apple accessories. So they put the Plus technology in this shoe. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed checking out all of these incredible Air Max 96s. I really hope they retro them, especially the original dark Concord edition. That would be so popular. But what they've got to do is retro the OGs. Not the 96 180, not the 96 Evolve, but boom, just the Air Max 96s. They'd be a hit for sure.